Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SOMM TV podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wise. On SOMM TV and in our films, we have interviewed some of the greatest people in the wine world. Many of them got their start at a place called UC Davis. This is a school that is at the cutting edge of training the future and a lot of the past great winemakers and wine professionals. On today's episode, I am interviewing Dr. Ben Montpetit of UC Davis, who leads one of the world's top wine science laboratories, focusing on grapevine genetics, fermentation, and sensory science. We're going to discuss the history of UC Davis and how their work is changing all aspects of winemaking for the future. Today's episode is brought to you by SOMM Blinders, our blind tasting card game that turns anybody into an expert blind taster. All you need is some wine and this card game and a group of friends. Go to blindersgame.com to get your deck right now, and you can get 50% off right now. blindersgame.com. Without further ado, my conversation with Dr. Ben Montpetit of UC Davis. Ben, it's an honor to have you here. I can only imagine how incredibly busy you are on a daily basis. It sounds like you're pretty booked up. So I want to thank you for joining us for this conversation.
Happy to be here. Glad to share anything I can with you and your listeners.
I really do love torturing academics, so this is going to be a lot of fun here. In my world, at least, I can't take two steps in what I do, making films about wine, having conversations, doing podcasts, anything that I am involved in without having UC Davis come up. Some of the people that have gotten me into this profession, I mean, they are, Carol Meredith, who is very important at UC Davis, and many others. It's been a long time coming for us to have a conversation about that institution and how important it is to wine. But before we do that, Ben, do you mind introducing yourself and what your title is?
Yeah, my name is Ben Montpetit. I'm the Richard M. Kunde Endowed Chair in Viticulture Enology, and I'm also the Marvin Sands Department Chair of the Department of Viticulture Enology, and carry the title of Professor, which means I've made my way through the system to the top where they give you all these other tasks and administration to do. So
I need a better title for my job.
Even these titles themselves speak to the connection we have with this industry. So Richard M. Kunde, Richard and his wife Sarah Lee were viticulturalists in Sonoma, owned a bunch of grapes there, kind of like pillars of their communities. And later in their life, they endowed a chair here at UC Davis to help our program. And that's the same with the Marvin Sands Department Chair as well. And just speaks to the community we're in. Fantastic people right in the wine world, an amazing community to be a part of, and one that we're proud to serve. You kind of mentioned our history.
Yeah, that's what I want to start with. Kind of when and where did this start? I mean, this goes way back, I think further back than a lot of people realize. So why don't we start with give me some history on the viticulture at UC Davis.
We go back to 1880. That's really the founding of this department. We were actually established by the act of the state. So it's kind of a unique thing we carry as a department at a university at the UC that was started by an act of the state legislature. We go back to 1880. At that time, lots of grapes already in California. A lot of people here from all over the world bringing their culture of wine here. And it was recognized as being something that was going to be economically very important for California. And there was this other little problem that had shown up right around that time called phylloxera. So this was the motivation for the founding of the department, was to create a department that was going to provide the science that was going to help address what was an issue that was hurting the industry.
And was that also to address it in Europe or just solely in America?
It was really focusing here in California, obviously, looking, at our state and what we needed. We were founded at a UC where, we're a public state serving institution. But of course, any knowledge we generate here, we see it as valuable and useful to the whole globe. So although we're serving California, we love it, obviously, when our science goes beyond that and can help anybody.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but was this the first program of its type in the U.S. that was kind of taking viticulture at this type of a serious level? Because I know at that time there were many agricultural programs around the country because, I would assume at that time there was quite a bit more agriculture happening as far as a job.
Yeah, so we're one of the founding, and really we're also part of a larger founding at that time, which was something called the Agricultural Experimental Station. So we're talking about a time in America where industry is growing. We're kind of entering this time when agriculture is growing. We have growing population. We need food. We need all of these things. And it was recognized that again, science and research was going to be at the heart of this. So in the UC system, they started something called the Agricultural Experimental Station, or AES as we refer to it. And the founder of our department, Eugene Hilgard, who started at UC Berkeley in 1875, was the kind of first director of that AES station, and really helped found. He's kind of the fathers of viticulture here in America.
So many winemakers that we've worked with, products of the department and products of viticulture at UC Davis. I'm going to ask you a really stupid question. Why does somebody need to go to school to be a winemaker or to be an enologist? Why can't you just do that? Why is that something you have to go to school for?
I think there's two answers to this, and I think it's the same of any profession out there, right? Like, you can, through hard work and sweat and time invested, et cetera, you can make your way up through any profession, really. Well, maybe, I don't know. We don't let many doctors operate on people without a degree. But nonetheless, like journalism, whatever it is, you can do the hard work and get recognized for it. But going to school obviously gives you that little bit of a jump start. It kind of instills some of that knowledge and foundation into you more rapidly, I would say, and then sets you up for, learning and progression out there in your career. So people come to wine from all kinds of different backgrounds, and it is a scientific discipline, the understanding of making wine. You got to grow, there's plant biology, there's microbiology, there's chemical engineering in this, soil science, all of these kind of things coming together. And it's just a lot. So people come to get a degree, and they get that foundation. And one thing that's really important, and people do not leave our program being winemakers. I share this with our students all the time. You're just a baby, right? You're just coming out of here. You've got so much to learn, but we're giving you that foundation so that you can go out there and make that progress and that learning. So maybe I'd like to think of it as like an acceleration. With the knowledge we impart on you, you're ready to make that progress, and you're going to get to the point you want to be as a winemaker, as a viticulturist, whatever, that much more rapidly. Because of that learning that we instill in you, and because of that degree, people are recognized for it. And I think it naturally, education and degrees kind of remove some of those ceilings that you might otherwise bump into.
Let me ask you this. Your lab that you run, which I'm sure is an all-consuming part of your life, it is, I'm assuming you don't really leave the lab. You're sort of, it's always
a family
with you.
business. That's what we call it. It's like running a small family business. You're all in.
Okay, another stupid question. Why do you need this lab? What are you guys doing in there?
So every faculty member, that's a part of our department, currently 14 of us, again, covering those disciplines I talked about: plant science, viticulture, soil science, microbiology, chemical engineering, sensory science. We all come to this because at the heart, we're scientists. We have questions, we have curiosity, we want to know things about the world. And our research lab is where we do all of that. That's where we mentor the next generation of scientists. That's where we get to scratch that curiosity itch. And those are the things that drive us. So we need that space. We all have master's students or PhD students or staff scientists that were doing the work that's at the core of who we are and the kind of questions we ask. I could ask the same thing, like, what drives you to go around interviewing people, talk to people about wine, right? And it's like, what you're curious about. It's what you want to know, right? Yeah.
We've said this 100 times, and it's almost a cliche at this point. It's just wine touches everything. If you want to talk about religion, or you want to talk about chemistry, or you want to talk about politics, or you want to talk, it's all right there. I mean, wine to me is just this gigantic mosaic of whatever you want to do.
Totally agree. And there's just so much science that comes into it. Wine is, one of the most complex beverages, and it brings all of these things together. It's just amazing. We've probably been enjoying wine for over 10,000 years. And as you said, it kind of sits at the interface of everything: culture, human behavior, science, economics in the world right now. It touches everything.
To speak to somebody who is looking at it from the angle you are is fascinating. I have spoken to people in the Vatican, clergy, I've spoken to, you name it, but I have not really done a lot of, you are in the lab. I want to know what are some of the groundbreaking things or some of the most surprising things that you guys have worked on, are working on, something that the normal person listening to this who drinks wine, loves it, would be like, oh, I didn't realize this was something that took that kind of a backstory to get to me. What are the most groundbreaking things you guys are doing?
So I think one place here to start is, we go all the way back to 1880 in phylloxera. You have a disease that's attacking, vines and making it economically challenging to grow grapes in California, et cetera. You come out of prohibition as another next, really credible hurdle for the industry. You have to figure out, how to make quality wine here in California, how, grape selections, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it just builds from there. So we can go back to the 1940s and that kind of question of where do you go grapes in California? Which grapes are in the best place? And so we have something called the Winkler Index, which was Winkler and Amarine, two, famous faculty members from our department that did the work to connect climate and site with quality in terms of the grapes that you grow. Then you start accelerating through time, the 1950s and 60s, you're talking about people starting to learn about how to, the microbiology of these things, which up to that point, you kind of just, everything was a spontaneous fermentation. Everything it just happened, and then you get into the 1960s, you're starting to select all the variables and control the variables to make a quality product. And then you go through, 1970s and 80s, and you're starting to think about, how do we bring, wine to the public at a scale and of a quality that's required? How do we talk about wine? 1980s, here at UC Davis, people started to produce these wine aroma wheels, this kind of lexicon for how we talk about wine.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Carol Meredith. We get into the 90s, we get into the age of DNA, and you start to get into Carol Meredith telling us, where these grape varieties that we love come from in the world and who the parents of these varieties are. Now we're in the 2000s, and we're really focused on those pressures that are really hurting the industry. What happens when there's a fire and we have to deal with smoke impact? Pierce's disease. There's a virus in California that's causing a lot of issues right now. There's a number of them, but there's one called red blotch that's causing issues in the Napa Valley and other places. So we've kind of been at the forefront of all of these places where we've tried to bring our expertise and knowledge to just the simple outcome of making a better product for consumers. So when a consumer picks up that bottle and says, this is, of high quality, it's stable, it, kind of tells a story of a place, and all of those things are all things that we've kind of touched in a way. And I would say too, going back to the beginning, we really are a byproduct of a little bit of serendipity as well. We are within the UC system. The UC system, again, I'm biased, but I think, the best public university system in the world. And we happen here at UC Davis to be located next to some of the best wine growing regions in the world. And you just have that then, let's call it a positive feedback cycle that gets launched from there. So, you talked about our people that we've graduated. Yes, many famous people in the wine industry have come out of here, but that's the talent the industry needed. And it came from a UC, right? It just like the UC and other places have fueled things like Silicon Valley, et cetera. It's the same thing. You need excellent people to do excellent things.
When you spend your entire career looking at not just wine, but agriculture from this close of an angle, can you still enjoy it? I'll ask sommeliers this, I'll ask wine critics this. At a certain point, are you drinking it I really wish they had not used so much SO2 in this, or are you thinking, is it all mechanical? Or are you able to just drink this and go, damn, this is tasty?
No, it's still very easy to sit back and enjoy a glass of wine,
Okay.
A hard day, at the end of a day, sitting in your backyard, sitting with friends, food, family. It's obviously very easy to enjoy that. But you're right, that in the back of your mind, there's always this curiosity. And it's not necessarily second guessing a winemaker or saying, they shouldn't have done this or done that. It's more of the question of, again, I'm a scientist. The question is why? Curiosity. Why did they do this, right? This is interesting. Okay. And trying to understand that mindset. And people ask me all the time, what's your favorite wine? And usually the favorite wine is the next one I get to try, right? The next, unique thing that's coming out, the next kind of left turn someone takes. That's what's exciting to me. So no, it doesn't get old.
You have to have opinions then. I mean, like when a movement sweeps through, like a natural wine or any of this stuff, I mean, how involved are you in any of that stuff? I mean, there are plenty of winemakers that are adjusting acidity and doing all sorts of little tweaks and adding, mega purple and all this stuff, but
Yeah.
you would know any way possible to manipulate a wine. And so what I want to get to is like, what side of the coin are you on? Should you?
Yeah.
Should you not? It's a big question.
So even, I would even, I can be honest, I don't like the word manipulate, right? Like that
Okay.
to us is like, not what we're focused on here. I'd go back to the foundational kind of, we want to teach people about how wine is made. We want them to understand the microbiology, the chemistry, et cetera. Me personally, what we want is to give our students and trainees the knowledge that when they're out there doing their work, they can make whatever product they want in whatever way they want. They understand where the risks are, and they can understand where they can be hands off and not do anything, or where maybe there is a little bit of kind of direction added. So yeah, there's so many choices in the wine world. That's the conversation we have with our students is everything is a decision. From day one, when you decide to plant a vine somewhere, you're making a decision that's going to have long-term effects. It's 6-7 years before you're producing, the kind of mature wine out of that site. So everything you're doing is a choice. So it's not really us saying that there is only one way to do this and there's either the right path or the wrong path. It's more, this is your choice at this point. What decision are you going to make and why? And then, that how that tees up the next one and the next decision and the next decision. So that's really what we're about here, is trying to figure out kind of the diversity of paths that you can get from vine to bottle, and empowering, people to make the best choices so that it's sustainable at the end of the day, right? And when I say sustainable, we're not just talking about environmental sustainability. Healthy lands and all of this is incredibly important. So there is an environmental component to this, but the industry has to be sustainable. The market has to be sustainable. People have to make a living, off of this. I'm sure when you talk to people, if you ask them what a winemaker's job is like, to the average person out there, they imagine someone sitting around with a glass of wine in their hand, swirling it and talking about, the hue and the aromas and everything. And talk to any winemaker, like that is not what they're doing. Yeah.
Well, the winemakers I like to talk to, that's certainly not what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But another thing that interests me, so maybe for lack of a better comparison, I went to film school, and I remember being in film school that all of the kids of a generation, you kind of go, well, these are the directors I like. I want to be Quentin Tarantino, or I want to be Steven Spielberg, or and now it's everyone wants to be the Duffer Brothers or Stranger Things or something. What are the wines and winemakers that the kids you are teaching now, what drove them into this profession? Are they like, I love Napa wine, or I love French wine, or I love Sancerre? Do they have this kind of a mentality of like, I got into this because, or it's, I want to farm like they do in the Rhone? Is there some North Star for them right now? Because I'm always curious. That's the next generation that's going to make my wine. I'm curious what they like.
I think the thing that I find most intriguing or exciting about what I see in our student body here is just a diversity of viewpoints. Yeah. People find their way to wine in so many different ways. We have people in our program that, since I was 5 years old, I've known that I loved being on the land and walking through vineyards, and this is what I wanted to do. There's other people in our program that I came to UC Davis to be a biochemist, and I started taking biochemistry classes, and I happened to take this class called Intro to Winemaking and figured out, there's this class that takes, there's this career that takes everything I love about science and then is, making this amazing product. And that's what I want to do. So the students get here so many different ways. And if you ask that question in our class, like, who are you who are you kind of wanting to be when you grow up, right? Like, who's your winemaker? 30 people in the class, you're getting 30 different answers. Like some love what's going on in Napa and Sonoma, or, Lodi, Paso Robles, the foothills, wherever in California. Other people are like, no, we're going cold climate. We want, hybrids. We want different stuff. Like, yeah, that's the exciting thing is so the future is going to be, again, full of possibility and diversity in terms of what kind of products are out there.
How does all the research you're doing impact, the future of farming? There's a lot of change and a lot of, I'd say, nerves around wine and climate. And what research are you doing right now that's going to make big impacts in the way things are going to move forward?
Yeah, so I think what we're seeing right now is, as I've kind of mentioned some, I can say them again. So what we're seeing is things like extreme weather events. Right?
Yeah.
We remember 22 probably if you talk out there talking to
Certainly.
winemakers and
Oh,
stuff,
yes.
where there was this heat dome. The next season is one of the coolest seasons on record. So we're having these extremes, and then we have viruses that are coming into vineyards.
But so what are you doing that will impact the actual for the heat? I mean, think of heat and cold. That's never. I mean, it's going to keep going up and down and swinging and all that.
Yeah.
But what are you doing in the lab that's going to prepare people to fight that?
Yeah,
or
so
protect.
Here in the department on the viticulture side, we have grape breeders who are working on kind of solutions in terms of new plant materials. It could be rootstocks, it could be new scions that have that resilience that's needed. People are working on all the way through to precision viticulture type techniques, where how are we using automate or technology, et cetera, to predict these outcomes, apply water at the right time, these types of decision making. Then it can flow down, into how do we make the highest quality wines off of sites that might be challenged by climate change. In my lab, we're working on new microbes and microbiology that we're finding, and these are already organisms that are out in the environment, and we're isolating them and characterizing them, and they have characteristics that are better aligned, with these kind of challenges of the future. So it's really aimed at every level of expanding the tools and the application of technology to make better decisions to overcome, these problems. At the end of the day, these are people, they're farming. They need to make a living off of this, and they need to survive, and we're trying to give them every edge to do that.
Yeah, and to ask you a question as a follow up, is it going to be okay? Is wine gonna be all right?
Yeah. We're not going. Wine is not going anywhere. Like I said, it's been here for 10,000 years. It's had some bumps along the way, I'm sure, as we all know, but it's not going anywhere. And even the there's a downturn in the industry right now. It's challenging. It's terrible to see people, having to shutter businesses and lose jobs, et cetera. But, I do really believe that it's not going anywhere. And if anything, these challenging times make us come back stronger, right? Make us invest in this innovation and ways of doing things that are ultimately going to make us better in the long run.
I agree. What do you think has the greatest potential to seismically change the wine business as we know it?
One technology that has the ability likely to make the greatest impact is CRISPR, actually. So CRISPR is this technology that allows you to do targeted editing of the genome of an organism. Obviously, this comes with a lot of
ethical questions and
ethical questions, but ultimately, this is an incredibly powerful tool, discovered in part by Jennifer Doudna at UC Berkeley, one of our, proud UC faculty members. And it just has such an amazing breadth of applications that when we talk about these challenges of disease and other things, with an investment in science, with an investment in technology, and with time, we can address a lot of these agricultural problems. And CRISPR is going way beyond grapes. We're talking about all agricultural products. But we do have to deal with that challenge of making sure people understand what that technology is, what it does, what it also doesn't do, and what it's not. And that's where there's a lot of this confusion and stuff, and lends itself to that dialogue that you hear out there around GMOs and these kind of challenges. But in terms of a technology that's powerful and has the ability to have major impacts in the future, that's definitely one of them.
At some point, we should have you back on just to talk about this topic without going totally down the wormhole about CRISPR. How far could it actually push things? I mean, could I be growing Syrah in a place that 20 years ago, no chance you could make a grape like that? I mean, could we be doing vines that are producing both red and white grapes on the same? I mean, how far can we push this?
Yeah, so I think one way of thinking about this is that, grapes are already grown all over the world, and they've basically over long periods of time adapted to be best situated where they are, right? So you
Mhm.
mentioned Syrah, or we can talk about Cabernet, or we can talk about Chardonnay and where it grows the best.
Sure.
That is a relationship of environment and genetics. That's the way we talk about it. G by E is the kind of fancy term, genetics by environment. What CRISPR can do is make changes to the genetic side of things that make a variety better adapted to its environment. So what it can really do is nothing different than already has been done with a lot of time in terms of these different grapes adapting to different areas.
So it's like 500 years of monks
It's
trying to see where they want to
accelerating.
grow something.
Yes, yeah, it's accelerating this process. So, and that's where we get into this area where I actually don't think it's that scary, and I don't think it's that unethical. And again, I'm talking my personal opinion
Sure.
on all of these things, but it's really just giving us a tool that allows us to accelerate this process and realize things that a traditional breeding program or other thing would take 50 years to realize. And in many instances, with the pace of climate change and other pressures on our industries, 50 years might be too long, to wait.
Fascinating. I'm very much looking forward to the best wine in the world being grown in central Ohio. That's it's just a fascinating concept to think how far this could be pushed. And again, just like you said, it's not doing anything different than taking 500 years of trial and error and just condensing it into a 12-year period. But man, the doors it could open.
Wine is still going to be very much of a place and a site. You're not going to reproduce Burgundy in Ohio and things like that, and you're not going to reproduce Napa in, again, pick your spot,
Maine, sure.
northern UK, Britain or something like that.
Sure, sure.
There's a lot about site and place that are obviously putting pressures on this, but what we can do is direct things so that we can make the best wine of that site. Right, that's the way I would kind of look at it. The best wines that are possible in that place, given the pressures that are on it, disease pressures, weather, all of these things.
Yeah, really fascinating. The process of wine is such a fascinating thing because when you grow soybeans, they get cooked or modified into something. But with wine, there's this fermentation. But when it comes to the actual way it's fermented, the creation of the alcohol, is there anything new to be done with that or improved on that aspect? Or is that pretty much, we got that down?
Yeah, no, there's tons of room there. So like a lot of the conversation we've been having is me speaking as kind of like a general overview of our department. So I'm using in many cases the kind of royal we. I'm not a viticulturalist. I don't, actually, touch the green plants in the field, et cetera. Those are other folks in my department. And I'm a microbiologist. So you're getting into my lane now, which is the fermentation side of things. Actually, that's where I live.
Good.
I think there's obviously tons of room for improvement and understanding there. Again, and it comes back to if I'm talking to any individual member of the industry, any supplier or producer, what is their challenge, right? Do they need faster fermentations, more efficient fermentations? Do they want to save energy on cooling costs, et cetera, that allow them to make the same quality wine, but, more efficiently? Do they want a product that has very different, sensorial characteristics and is doing something, totally left, out of the left field? Are you thinking about a no or low alcohol product now? That's a whole different, kind of ball game again. Are you pushing the envelope in terms of, like I said, we said sensory, but like color, aroma, again, where do you want to land? Or are you facing pressures? Do you have funguses, bacteria in your vineyards that are challenging fermentations, and now you need you need to regulate the microbiology in such a way that you overcome those problems. So there's just it's an endless kind of list of questions, and that's again what makes the science behind this so exciting. Is is we've been doing it for 10,000 years. There's easily another 10,000 years of questions to be asked, and we're so far away from understanding it. My hope in the future at some point is actually to go on sabbatical and probably do what you're doing a lot of, Jason, is go around and talk to people. Don't worry, I'm not coming after your job or anything.
You know, to be honest, you can have it sometimes.
Yeah. But I want to talk to those winemakers out there that I'll pick some random number. It doesn't have to be this number, but let's say 40 vintages. You know, like you've done at least 40 vintages, just to sit down and talk to them about everything that, what do they pay attention to? What do they smell? What do they taste? How do they think about these things? And undoubtedly, all of these winemakers and viticulturalists have spent that amount of time with the thing they love. They've figured out things scientifically. Now, they may not be able to explain them the same way I would from a scientific perspective, but they know more about it than they realize, and that's the people I want to learn from and talk to more. So unlimited number of questions out there to address, and it's just really a question of, if you are producing wine, what is the problem you want to address? And I guarantee you there's things we could do to go after it.
Oh, without a question. I mean, what a fantastic second chapter you're going to have doing that. On that note, though, I do that, and what made me and keeps me in this job is that person will be describing what you're talking about and break down in tears about the time their father passed away. And all of a sudden you realize how connected humans are to this product that is scientific. And it's an amazing ebb and flow of emotions and memory and taste and science and all of this. So, Ben, I really appreciate you helping me pull all that together on this conversation. It's good stuff.
There's so many of these products out there that we enjoy in life. It goes way beyond wine in terms that are microbiologically, agriculturally derived products. And what I remind my students all the time, it's just controlled spoilage. That's all we're doing. We're controlling spoilage. It goes back to, again,
it really takes the romance out of it there. But
it does, but at the same time, it just makes it so interesting to think about, again, culture and the place of this in our culture. Why were people drinking wine in medieval days? Where did this come from? Why did we switch from a hunter-gatherer in the past to an agronomic system where we're stopping to grow? Some people out there hypothesize that it might be because we needed to grow more grain and other things for alcohol and products that made us stop moving around. So it's connected. It's at the heart of us as a people and our cultures, and endlessly interesting.
Great stuff. Well, next time we'll get into some ethics, and we'll talk genetics. That'll be good.
Perfect. That'd be great.
All right, my friend. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to today's episode. I want to thank Dr. Montpetit, obviously a very, very busy guy. Of course, this is the first of many conversations we are going to have with the faculty at UC Davis, and they really are working on some crazy stuff, so I look forward to bringing all that to you. Obviously, I want to tell everybody to remember, go to blindersgame.com to get your deck of cards for SOMM Blinders, blindersgame.com. Anybody can be a great blind taster with SOMM Blinders. I want to thank John Adams, our producer. I want to thank you for listening. And if you love the SOMM TV podcast, please give us a great review and a rating wherever you listen. We really appreciate it. Next week, we have a really hilarious episode. We have the whole team getting back on. We are drafting again. There is a wine draft, and we are drafting wine islands that grow wine. And it is so funny. I could not stop laughing thinking about it. So you will enjoy that. You can watch that episode on SOMM TV. So make sure you subscribe, sommtv.com. Everybody be safe. We will talk soon.